latest release of Epstein files, and do you think your critics will be satisfied with?
Well, they should be, because it looked like this guy Wolff, who's a writer, was conspiring with Epstein to do harm to me. And I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, the radical left. That Wolff was a third-rate writer, was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to hurt me, politically or otherwise, and that came through loud and clear. So we'll probably sue Wolff on that.
Sir, did you speak, or did you have any knowledge?
And maybe the Epstein estate, I guess. I don't know, but we're going to certainly sue Wolff.
You want to sue the Epstein estate?
Well, I guess so, because he was conspiring with Wolff to do harm to me politically. That's not a friend.
Just when you thought the Epstein files were being delayed and forgotten about, there's been a big drop over the weekend, and there's some big names in these files. And I just want to remind you that there's a difference between being in the emails and on this so-called list. But let's talk about it. Joining me live now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney. Mick, thanks so much for your time. Geez, there's some big names here. Can we start perhaps with Bill Gates? He's in Australia at the moment. He was at the tennis. He's issued a denial. But geez, this is damaging.
It is, Laura, but you have to give sort of the right preface here, which is this is raw data. Just because something is in the file doesn't mean it's necessarily true. And that's what a lot of folks are saying, is that anybody can say anything about anybody these days, and they do, and now it's end up in the file. So we have to be very careful about jumping to conclusions. That being said, a lot of the information that has come out, or at least some of it is contained in sworn affidavits by alleged victims and so forth. So you probably give that a little bit of credit, at least if someone's willing to sign an affidavit. But look, you're right. The bottom line is this, is that there's a ton of salacious information in here, several million documents unloaded, as typical on a Friday or a Saturday, a news dump going into the weekend to try and lower its profile. But the bottom line is it's going to be weeks, and that's not an exaggeration, before people go through all of the documents that were unloaded this weekend. And if you believe folks at the FBI, roughly half of the documents remain unproduced at this point, so there could be more in the future.
Okay, interesting. I wonder how they are dividing it up in terms of what is released and what isn't. But what is clear to me at the moment, there's so much interest in this, and there's a lot of guilt just by association of Jeffrey Epstein, because now we have all of this hindsight, right? But what strikes me is the amount of sucking up to Jeffrey Epstein that these powerful people were willing to do, even after he was convicted of these sex offences, is just baffling. Can you give us an idea of, when he was alive, just how powerful he was, and why did that power remain even after these convictions?
I didn't move in those circles, so I didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. I know a bunch of the people who are named in various pieces of these files and so forth, and these reports. If you're asking me, do I think that sex and power have an impact on people? Yeah, they probably have for a long time, and it looks like that's what this was about. One of the more interesting things that, to your point, Laura, that's come up over the last 48 hours is whether or not these documents seem to indicate that the Kremlin was involved somehow in Epstein's operation. Was the KGB helping to fund this? That could go to your point about, why did he have so much money? Why did he have so much ability? Why did he have so much power? If he was being assisted by the KGB in order to, develop dirt on famous people, that would explain part of it. But again, this is still very early in the analysis.
Yeah, and of course there's the conspiracy that he was actually working for Israel's Mossad as well, but there's nothing in these files that would be giving any credence to that theory. But the big names, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, apparently mentioned 1,000 times in this latest dump. Again, it doesn't make him guilty of anything, but I'm looking at, I guess we can call it collateral damage as well. We've got these big headline figures, but also people like Peter Attia, who now works for CBS. He's become, this longevity guru. And some of the email exchange, I think there's a big entertainment value in this, and people poring over these private correspondence is going to have, look, there's a lot of news columns that are going to be written about this. It makes our job a lot easier here in the news.
It's not going away. And how many times have you and I talked about that over the course of the last year since Donald Trump got elected, about how they've mismanaged, the administration has, the drip of these documents and of this material. That you have to ask yourself why this all just wasn't put out at one time in January. Pull the Band-Aid off and let the chips fall where they do, as opposed to providing this constant new feed of this salacious material that people will eat up. There's no question. Look, there's a reason tabloids are as successful as they are. People love reading about this stuff. And it is absolutely going to be a distraction for Donald Trump. There is no question. A distraction for the Republicans. Don't get me wrong. There's Democrats in these files as well. This is a purely bipartisan, a true bipartisan of endeavor. But Donald Trump, being who he is going to have to face a lot of questions for the next several weeks until the next dump comes out.